Hello and welcome to Global News Today, bringing you exclusive interviews with leading experts every weekday here on Arabiya News. I'm Tom Burges Watson. Coming up on today's programme, President Trump's lineup continues to take shape with the former US Secret Service agent Dan Bongino chosen as the Deputy Director of the FBI. Coming up, we'll be speaking to Elon Musk's father, Errol Musk. He'll be welcomed to the Arabiya studios and we'll be asking him what he makes of the new administration and his son's role in it. And Sunday's election in Germany hands the far-right AfD party its best ever result, but the leader of the winning centre-right bloc, Friedrich Merz, has ruled out working with them. Hello and welcome to the programme. We begin tonight with the latest as the administration of the US President Donald Trump continues to take shape. Well, he has appointed Dan Bongino, podcaster and commentator, as the new Deputy Director of the FBI. Well, President Trump made the announcement on Sunday night via his Truth Social platform, praising Bongino as a man of incredible love and passion for his country. Well, Bongino, a former US Secret Service agent, will serve under Kash Patel, who was sworn in as FBI Director of the White House last week. Meanwhile, Elon Musk has given all federal workers 48 hours to explain and showcase what they've accomplished during the previous week or face consequences. Well, the tech billionaire, who is serving as President Donald Trump's cost-cutting chief, made this request on his social media platform X. Well, he also made it clear that not responding to that instruction would be treated as a resignation, with the deadline set for Monday at 11:59 p.m. US time. While some agencies have instructed their employees to ignore Musk's message. Well, this move seems to be an example of Musk's chainsaw approach, a term that's been borrowed from Javier Milei, the president of Argentina. Well, experts say the chainsaw refers to plans to drastically cut government spending. That's an approach Musk is now embracing.
This is the chainsaw for bureaucracy. Chainsaw!
Now, it's been 1 month since President Donald Trump returned to the White House. Well, he returns with a brand new lineup, but there's one face that's already familiar to people right across the globe. Elon Musk, the SpaceX and Tesla boss, who's been tasked with setting up and overseeing an entity known as the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, which is expected to overhaul the government and root out what the White House deems wasteful expenditure. So how is he getting on, and what more do we know about Elon Musk? Well, who better to ask than his father, Errol Musk, who joins us here in the studio today. Mr. Musk, very nice to have you with us here at the Arabiya studios. What brings you to the region?
What brings us to the UAE is I'm here because a while back I suggested the establishment of a science institute in this area, somewhere in the Middle East. Dubai seemed a good option, Abu Dhabi, Riyadh, you know, where we would have a science institute devoted to two subjects, and which would collect together the kind of minds that are capable of working on that. That's not conventional minds. We're looking for those kind of goofy guys like Einstein and Faraday and so on, who are out there to come and work, get well paid, and study gravity, space-time travel, and fusion. If we don't do that, then the popular vision of the future that we all hold when we see the films, the movies and so on, of vehicles moving in space and going up into space and moving around the cities, it's not going to happen.
So this is all part of the Musk Institute. Does it come under that umbrella?
Yes. It started being called an institute, and then someone in December said it should be called the Musk Institute. I didn't say that, and I said, well, all right, well, you can call it the Musk Institute, and so we went on, you know, and it's really been growing out of proportion, so big that it was necessary for us to come here for the last few days to see people from London, Hong Kong, and Los Angeles, China, San Francisco, and so on. We were all able to meet here as sort of a central point, you know, to make further discussions.
Sure, and obviously science and space travel and all these things seem to run in the family.
Yes.
And obviously the Musk brand is an extremely strong brand and an extremely strong name, so you're right to leverage that. Are you finding the Einsteins in this region that you mentioned that you're looking for?
Finding the
Einsteins. You said you want to
Oh,
find the
yes,
Einsteins.
yes. I have, since we announced this, I didn't expect it. It came out of a short meeting with the Sheikh of one of the Emirates here in December, early in December, when at the end of the meeting, when amongst many, many people who were at the meeting of the Sheikh during the day, the Sheikh asked me to tell the group what we as a family are trying to do. And then he said, "What's next?" And I was caught somewhat off balance. And then I thought, well, this is the moment for me to talk about something I've always thought about, and that is an institute dedicated to the study of space-time travel, or gravity, or, you know, the controlling of gravity and space-time travel, which has been proven mathematically to be possible. And it's the way the universe actually works. Unfortunately, we're still getting there. We still live in space. And so I told this to the crowd, and I really thought that would be it. But the next few days, I received call upon call from media agencies, including yourselves, actually, asking me about it, you know. And so it's grown and grown and grown. And now it's almost a fait accompli. And now it's been tied to the idea that some bright spark from London came up with the idea that if we build a tower, and we call it the Musk Tower, then the investment in that will pay the investors and also be able to provide a couple of floors for the Institute to operate in, perhaps free of charge. In other words, it would be an engine that could drive the Institute. So when it comes to ideas, when this went out, I have, to answer your question, I have many, many, many people from all around the world writing to me, some of them struggling with English, saying to me, "I already have the answers. Please contact me." Some of them are sounding pretty odd. Some of them come from very established places in places like England. Very, very nice answers saying, "Please contact me."
I want to ask you a bit more about this idea of a Musk Tower.
Yes.
Obviously, we've become familiar with Trump Towers all around the world.
Yes.
Where's the first Musk Tower going to be? Will there be many of them?
Well, that's what somebody came up with the idea. In order to provide an income for the Institute, instead of relying on donations or trying to raise money other ways, until we find something. Bear in mind that if we do crack these problems at the Musk Institute, the Musk Institute will be worth trillions of dollars. Trillions of dirhams or dollars or whatever you want to call it. And yeah, until we get there, we would no doubt rely on help. So the tower would be an income-producing thing that would enable the Institute to operate from within the tower on a couple of floors, you know, space. Your question again was...
about Musk Towers.
Why
where are we going to see them? And
where would we put the tower?
Yeah.
Well, you know, at this point, we would put the tower wherever we can. I would still go for somewhere in the vicinity that we're in now, the UAE, somewhere possibly in the Arabian Peninsula. It could be in Riyadh. It could be in, you know, conceivably even Cairo. It could be here. You simply want it to be in a place that is not going to be befuddled by weird government behavior. So you don't want to put it in America, because then it's going to become an American-directed setup. We don't want to put it in Russia. We don't want to put it in China, because it's a Chinese place. You know, India. But here, there's no, like, defined, you know, sort of controlled borders or something. It's freer here somehow of independence and silly government interference.
Okay, and what's sort of been the overall response to this idea? I've seen a press release, I've seen a press pack about the Musk Tower, the Musk Institute. How are people responding to your idea?
Tremendously. It's really, they don't need any explanation. They seem to have more ideas than needing an explanation from me or my team. They seem to have ideas that they want to give us rather than we need to tell them what we want to do.
What drives you? You're 79 years old.
Yes.
You're not showing any signs of slowing down. You're flying around the world,
Yes.
and here you are in the Middle East. What's motivating you?
Well, you know, I was fortunate enough to be born after the Second World War, at a time when things were happening. We entered. I was born in the nuclear age, and so all the little boys that I grew up with, sometime in England and a lot of time in South Africa, the sort of friends I had were all, you know, sort of science geeks, and there were no exceptions. I mean, it was just so interesting. Sputnik went up, you know. I, for example, joined the Moonwatch team I got $1 a night to track satellites for the Moonwatch team for America once a week. And all we ever spoke about was things like this. And we even took to making our own telescopes, where we ground our own lenses, made our own lenses for telescopes.
Wow.
Yes.
That really is geeky. Was your son a geek when he was growing up?
Yes, absolutely.
What sort of signs did he show of?
Well, he was, of course, in a later generation and able to experience things better than I was. So, for example, he was able to work with a computer, a real computer. The first one I got him was an IBM XTA, came out in 1982. It cost slightly less than a new Mercedes-Benz car. I bought that for him upon his insistence after it came out.
What sort of age was he?
11.
11.
So by the age of 12, he was a fully fledged programmer. He could program. He could code, as they say now. But he was a fully fledged programmer at the age of 12. And at the age of about 13, I would, of course, buy him extras for his computer as we went along. Computer came from IBM with a printer, mouse, keyboard, screen, and so on. Hard drive, soft drive, you know. But I would buy him the extras as we went along. One day he came to me with an extra that he'd got. It was a grey box with a red light on it. And he said to me, "Do you know what this is?" This was about 1983, maybe 84, 83. And he said, "Do you know what this is?" And I said, "What is it?" He said, "This is a modem. With this, I can communicate with my little computer, with the computer at Oxford University." I said, "Well, how do you do that?" And he said, "Well, I just plug it into the telephone lines, you know?"
Yeah.
And of course, my immediate reaction was, "What? Are you making calls to England, you know?" "No," he said, "it's superimposed on the line." 12 years old, explaining to me how the information is superimposed on the telephone lines. As a 12-year-old.
Yeah.
And you don't use the actual line. You simply superimpose signals, which is what is done today. And then he said, "Everyone will have a modem one day." Of course, the first time I'd ever seen one. And of course, in due course, everyone knew what a modem was.
So on the one hand, he's this science geek. On the one hand, he's geeky and scientifically oriented. On the other hand, you told us last time we spoke, he was very business oriented and he saved his pocket money diligently.
Oh, yes.
And even came to the family's assistance at one point.
No, he was very frugal, Elon, and still is, you know.
And that's what he's doing now, isn't it? In his capacity as DOGE in the
Yes.
Department of
he
Government
knows
Expenditure.
exactly what to do.
Well, he's out there with his chainsaw.
He's allergic to waste. Yeah,
Cutting costs.
Waste and theft. He's very allergic to that. So no, he as a boy he was normal. He loved motorbikes. So you know he was often, you know, injured on a motorbike, and quite often actually. And so he was pretty normal. Rode horses.
Popular and sociable.
He selected his friends. He had one or two close friends. His brother, on the other hand, was friends to 20 every day, you know. And as a single father, I had them growing up with me, the boys, not with it, they weren't with their mother, they were with me. I was very easy because I didn't have to have a mother saying they can't do this, they can't do that. I just let them do what they wanted. And then all I had to do was provide burgers and steaks at certain times in the day for the lot. It was very easy out for me.
Is there a sort of a Musk work ethic that perhaps came down from your father?
Yes.
What is it? How do you describe it?
It's a kind of intense need to do something and get it done. An intense need. It's almost it's actually something that you wish you didn't have, you know. But I don't think we're the only people who are like that. But we are intensely driven when we become involved in something to make sure that we try and make it work. If it gets the very better of us, we tend to maybe just leave it, walk away from it, and struggle, but then eventually bounce back at it and start again.
Do you speak to your son-in-law? And how's he getting on in Washington?
Well, you know, at the moment they are in a sort of euphoric state because having won the election, Elon, by the way, 5 years ago was a Biden supporter. And he donated to the election in 2020 for Biden.
And for Obama.
Yes, and for Obama before that. And but since then, he's seen what these people were doing. And at the moment, they're at a convention of the, I suppose you'd call it the Republican Party in America. And they are somewhat happy and euphoric and jumping around on stage. I'm not too excited to see him doing that. But you have to understand.
What do you mean you're not excited? You didn't like the picture of him with the chainsaw?
Didn't like?
The images of your son brandishing a chainsaw?
No, I think well, I can understand the euphoria because people are sick and tired of these bureaucracies basically taking people's tax money, blowing it on heaven knows what, waste, and the man in the street can barely get by at the end of his month or his week. And people have had it. They've had it. They really have had it. And not only in America, but in many places. And so now, for the first time, these people who have been basically stealing money are being held to account. Elon told me yesterday or the day before that that Ukraine is the most gigantic graft machine the world has ever known. The Ukraine war is a gigantic graft machine.
What do you mean by that? What's the meaning of that? Who's
graft
stealing?
is theft.
Who's stealing?
We are going to tell you. We're going to find out. And the money is being sent there and going into the back pockets of people who are going to be very sorry about it very soon. Many of them, many thousands, many hundreds of them, who have, we see them in the public spaces. They enter the government with a house maybe that they own, or maybe even less. In a very short time, they're worth $40, $50 million, sometimes $250 million.
Are you suggesting the president of Ukraine is one of them?
Oh, yes, of course, absolutely. I don't give much hope for him. He knows too much. So I hope he has some form of bodyguards, because the people who've been doing this through him are going to be after him because he knows too much.
You're saying his life is in danger?
Yes, Zelensky. For
sure. Who would want to?
Well, he knows too much. You know, there's 200 billion missing out of Ukraine. $200 billion of money that was sent to the Ukraine. It's gone. Nobody knows where it is. He does. So he's going to tell. He's going to tell people where. I imagine, if I were him, I'd be rather concerned.
How do you see the war ending in Ukraine?
Well, the US will stop sending weapons to the Ukraine. I read yesterday that the English Parliament, government rather, Starmer's government, are scratching the bottom of the barrel in England to see what arms they can still send to Ukraine. My opinion is Starmer is working against the national interest of the people of the UK. He should not be in power there, and he should be out. He should be out of there, maybe even this month. He's no good.
So Keir Starmer's going to Washington during the course of the week.
I can't see how he can meet with Trump.
Well, he's going with the French president, who Donald Trump described as a friend, and he says that Sir Keir Starmer's a really nice guy. That's the latest I've got on what the president thinks of those two men. But how do you rate their chances turning up in Washington and trying to persuade Trump that
Very difficult.
peacekeeping forces are needed?
Look, their ambassadors and the people around them obviously will do whatever they can to make the situation work. But you're putting oil and water together, and since I've been born, I've never been able to see oil and water mix.
What about proposals from the Trump administration to buy Gaza? What do we read into that?
Well, you know, the Israeli situation is twofold. My heart goes out to the people in Gaza and to the Israelis. I don't see anything as one-sided there. Both sides have an argument. Palestine originally, from what I have read, and I have read on it a fair amount, was a place that housed both Arabs and Jewish people. The Sephardim were the local Jews who stayed there. You know, they didn't become Ashkenazi Jews. They've been there for the last 2,000 years. Palestine was a home of Arabs and Jews, not just Arabs, let's say. But be that as it may, I would like to see a very nice solution for the Arab people in Gaza. What's been going on is crazy. And the idea that the developed world will step in and turn Gaza into I don't know if you've ever been to Morocco and Tripoli and seen some of the tremendously beautiful seaside resorts there. And if they could do that with Gaza, turn it into create a form of income for the people.
That's if they stay, but President Trump suggested that it's bought, they're relocated, and have to go and live somewhere else. That's not fair, is it?
No. That would be a choice. That would be a choice. I mean, if they want to, we have in our country, where I live in South Africa most of the time. I'm quite often in the United States, but I'm essentially a South African. We have many people who have been sort of side shifted in our country, and there in that case, Trump has offered them refugee status. That's white farmers in America. So it's a similar sort of thing. He's not telling them they have to get out of South Africa. He's offering them the opportunity if they want to. And so also with Gaza, the idea would be, look, if there's a place that has a place for you and where they have nice facilities and everything, would you not perhaps like to move there as a group or a community or individually? I can't see anything wrong with that.
When President Trump puts out an idea like that, says let's buy Gaza, or something that sounds quite outlandish or a bit left field, help us decrypt that, decipher that. What's he doing?
He's a New York businessman. In New York, everybody knows exactly what they're doing. If you say to a cab driver you get into a cab in New York and you say to the cab driver, English style, being somewhat English myself, can you take me to, New Jersey, or can you take me to the Washington Bridge, or something like that? Sure, he says, get in. He doesn't say, I think so. That's America. That's
You're saying President Trump has some of the attributes of a New York cab driver?
Absolutely. Yes, very much so. Very much so. They're all the same. Doesn't matter if you're a cab driver. I got out of a bus once at Eastside Terminal, and the bus driver was taking out of the hold of the bus all these tremendously heavy suitcases, and he was a rather small man. So I thought, well, at the time, many years ago, I thought, well, let me help him, So I started taking the suitcases out. He put his hands on his hips. He said, what are you doing? You want my job? I said, no, I'm just trying to, don't you touch anything. He said to me, that's New York. Don't you try and take my job.
Just looking at Europe and the state of Europe, we've talked about this before in the past, and I know you're concerned about the direction things are heading in Europe. Your son and J.D. Vance have endorsed the AfD in Germany. Couldn't that be seen as some form of political interference in the affairs of another country?
No, I think today people are sharing ideas across country lines. The rest of the world had no trouble interfering and making a lot of commentaries about the Americans. So, now it can happen the other way as well, So I believe Starmer actually sent 100 Brits over to help Kamala Harris, which is an incredibly silly thing to have done.
They were volunteers.
Pardon?
They were described as being volunteers, so they went of their own.
Well, yes, I'm sure their fare was paid for not by themselves. But yeah, no. So it is reasonable for people to comment on situations these days because ultimately what happens in one country affects another country. And the things that J.D. Vance said at that meeting of European leaders and so on was very true. Everything he said, in my mind, completely true. And
what did he mean when he said there's no freedom of expression in Europe?
Yes, yes.
What's he getting at?
He said, well, he made it quite clear that the direction that they're moving in Germany, for example, now, is more in the direction of Hitler's Germany than what they say they're trying to do. They are trying to control speech. And in fact, that was what the Hitler government was trying to do. And they're trying to do that based on the premise that they want to select what they consider to be unpleasant speech. But, well, that doesn't work like that, actually. So, no, Vance was very accurate in what he said. Very true.
Do you think the Trump administration actually has any time for any European leaders right now, apart from perhaps the Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban? What does he think of the rest?
He's very popular. He's made a tremendous success in Hungary. And I think everyone is aware that in most of the European countries, there are the shadow governments that are exactly similar to the one in Hungary that are waiting to take over. In America, I've had the occasional chat with the women who run the AFD, because it seems to be almost all women that I've spoken to. And they're very, very nice people, very nice women. They're very middle of the road. They're very dead center, very common sense. There's nothing right-wing about them. You know, it's basically this, from the left, so-called left. If you don't agree with me, then you're right-wing. That's not right, you know. I mean, I can say, for example, Elon, probably the most dead center person you'll ever meet in your life.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask you and pick up on what you were saying just a moment ago. You were saying he used to be centrist, actually even quite apolitical, perhaps, until about 10, 15 years ago.
Yes.
Why did he suddenly change his views? What was it that made him go from being an Obama-Biden donor, centrist, to supporting Donald Trump?
Well, you know, the reason I kept telling them as kids, I took them to the US three times, when they were children. So by the time Elon went to the States, when I sent him to the States when he was just short of 18, he'd already been to the States, and he'd been to at least 20 of the States, you know. So he was very aware of the fact, me telling him that this is where you need to go if you ever want to get anything done. Of course, you know, you only have to look at the United States aviation, civil aviation, the United States development of all the things that we take for granted nowadays. Much of it came and still coming out of the United States. The PC, for example. And so, so I would have told him all the time, told them, you must get to the United States, all three of those days. And they all did. They all got to the United States. So the one is huge in restaurant ownership, because he likes doing that and farming. The other one, my daughter has her own film studios producing full-length films called Passion Flicks. And Elon, of course, is well known for his work in the technical world. Now, the things he's done in America with Tesla, with PayPal, even with Zip2 when they put the newspapers onto the internet, was not possible to do in any other country, because America made it possible by the freedom that they gave people to do things and to come up with ideas, and that you would not have had in the country he came from, South Africa,
Sure.
and in Europe, you know.
And does he call you and ask you for advice?
I just want to finish.
Yeah.
So when he saw that being eroded by the Biden administration, you know, in 2021, Biden invited all the electric car makers to the White House to discuss turning America into an electric car country by 2035. They didn't invite Tesla. They invited Ford, GM, all the others, but not Tesla. Mm. Tesla had built 1 million cars in that year and sold them all. Tesla had 450,000 cars with deposits on order. The other 5 manufacturers had produced 26 cars. They hadn't sold any. But Biden introduced the head of GM as the leader in electric car production in the United States. Elon was completely dumbfounded, as we all were. We were dumbfounded. And then Elon realized afterwards, when a deluge of bad things were said about him on Twitter, he was told that the government is, as he put it, led by a lunatic. Twitter is a government agency run by the crooked FBI, and so on. And that's why I bought Twitter. So in that case, I'm buying Twitter.
And when he does big things, does he pick up the phone and ring Dad and say...
No.
Does he call you Dad, or does he call you Errol?
No, Dad.
Dad. What does he say to you? Does he say, am I going the right way on this? What would you do in my situation? Does he ask you for advice?
No, he didn't put it like that. He'd tell me what he's doing and wait for me to say something.
Did he tell you he was going on the stage with a chainsaw, and did you say...
No, he didn't do that. No.
What did you think of that?
Years ago, he would tell me he's going to work... Years ago, when he was a student, say, for example, he would say, I'm going to work at Pinnacle Research. They have a plan to build an electric car using capacitors as a storage power for electricity. Then he'd wait for me to say, that's not a good idea, or that's a good idea. He wouldn't say to me, is it a good idea? He'd say, that's what you're going to do, and he'd wait for me to comment. And then I would say, great, that's a good idea, you know.
Just because it's so much in the news at the moment, and there's, it's been on headlines, just going back to the chainsaw, I mean, what did that represent to you? Or does your son have a long-standing fondness for power tools?
Yes. We lived on a farm, you know. He's used chainsaws many a time. So, a dangerous device, by the way, in case you don't know. No, he's used them. We had a farm, forested farm at one time. We had to take trees down all the time, and obviously the boys loved it, you know. I mean, it's the ultimate toy. But using it like he's doing now, it's a little bit theatrical and euphoric. You know, euphoric meaning they're very happy with the circumstances that they've got. They're finally tearing down this gross monster, this horrible monster that's grown, of corruption that's grown in America. And so one has to forgive them for their euphoria at this point. My own advice would be, you know, cool it, you know, a little bit, if you would, you know.
What do you mean by that? Are you saying the DOGE father, the dark glasses?
Don't be so threatening, you know, because all these people who have been on the take are now obviously terrified.
And not only on the take, I mean, there are people who've worked hard their lives, their whole careers, and they're going to be losing their livelihoods.
No, that's a very important point that you raise. When this whole thing started, people were saying to me that this was way back in late November. People were saying, no, this Elon can't be put in a position where he throws people out of jobs. So at that point, I was able to speak to my son Kimball, who came here and met me in Abu Dhabi, or in the Emirates. And we spoke about it, and then we had the odd small discussion with Elon that the idea is not to remove people from their job positions. The idea is to go in, this was then, in November, 3 or 4 months ago. The idea was not to remove, you know, decent people from jobs that they, for whatever reason, were doing, had been given, but to find out whether the job was absolutely necessary, and if not necessary, not proceed with that position, or perhaps merge that position. The real emphasis at that time was, like you do in business, the business people working with time and motion and improving the efficiency of companies. You know, they sometimes bring in these people, usually from very advanced places, like in England, to companies, and then they restructure the companies, and a company that was not doing well suddenly now starts doing well because they were doing things wrong. So that was the idea. But when they went into US aid about 3 weeks ago, they found that this was not the case. The rottenness was so enormous that the only solution, there was no possibility to think like that. They could not think about keeping people in jobs. The rottenness was so great that the only solution was to completely close down the entire department immediately and to
start with a bang,
deny anyone access to the building, remove the name of the building, and declare the building, the agency, defunct. Because the rottenness, It's like, as Elon himself said, it wasn't a case, he actually said this, and it relates to what we were talking about in November. He expected to find a rotten apple in the barrel, or perhaps another one here and there that he would remove from the barrel. But when he got into it, he found that the whole barrel was rotten apples, you see, with USAID. So that has unfortunately forced them to change their way of looking at it. They've had to disband it.
He's looking at lots of things in lots of different ways, lots of old issues. One of the really striking things the last couple of days has been the idea that perhaps what's held at Fort Knox is not what we think. He's talking about live streaming the content. Why is that important?
Well, yes, the rumors are that gold is being flown in from Europe to replenish the losses in Fort Knox that have been removed. That's rumors. And at the same time, access to Fort Knox has been blocked by local authorities on the grounds that access is a problem because of weather. So there's a sort of window being created for people who think in terms of maybe conspiracy, or maybe in terms of...
Isn't there a bit too much of
gold
that?
is being flown in from... you have to listen to the conspiracies, otherwise you won't learn. But the whispers are that gold is being flown in to Fort Knox from Europe to replenish stocks that were removed.
Do you think that that's likely to be true?
Well, we have to see. We'll have to see. Elon is very thorough. One thing that they can be assured of, Elon is very thorough. He's the last person you ever want to have check these things.
He's an auditor.
He's worse than an auditor. Worse. He doesn't miss anything. No, he won't miss anything. And you can see that from what he's done. I mean, what he's done in his life, governments, only a portion of what he's done in his life, governments haven't been able to achieve.
When you saw all the furore about his salute on the stage, what did you think of that?
No, nonsense. I mean, Elon is a terrible public speaker. He has a lot to learn. We all do. I struggled with it at the beginning of my career when I was elected to the city council, you know, and you have to stand up and talk to a bunch of very wise people all staring at you. Your nerve goes. Doesn't matter whether you've written your notes down, your eyes don't read as you stand up. You become blurred. And so I could see, knowing him as well as I do, I mean, I know him very well, that he was struggling to get through his little speech as fast as possible and to try and look as charming as possible as he could, you know. But he struggles. He hasn't reached the incredibly smooth level of people like yourself who are years of experience, can talk very well.
So for the record, it wasn't a Nazi salute.
Pardon?
It was not a Nazi salute.
No. It was an international salute that we've had for maybe the last 10,000 years, more perhaps. And the old German Hail Caesar, of course, obviously emanated from, no doubt, from the Persians, the Sumerians, and so on. It simply meant, my right hand is empty.
But as someone who saw the Second World War...
My right hand is empty. I do not carry a weapon.
You mentioned your father's role in the Second World War before we started the interview, and I'm just wondering whether you understand why people would be upset by that kind of imagery.
Well, yes, but somebody, they sent me the day after that pictures of Obama, Clinton, Hillary Clinton, AOC, and all sorts of people and Kamala Harris doing exactly the same thing. Nobody seemed to be bothered with it when they did it. And whereas Elon was thrusting out of his arm, theirs is actual, you know, sort of like this, which is more like the original Hitler one or something. You know, the Hail Caesar one was like this, you know, and so on. No, it was nonsense, but somewhat comical that they picked it up like that. So it's a bit funny.
I mean, obviously the GOP must be thinking about who's going to replace Donald Trump, because he can only serve 2 terms unless, of course, there's a change in the Constitution.
Yes.
Do you think they will change the Constitution? And do you think Elon, I know as things stand he can't be president, but perhaps if things were to change?
if you take my opinion, first of all, Elon is not cut out for politics. He may still learn the political way. Politics is where you have to deal with everyone, from the very incredibly clever to the very somewhat not clever, the highly sophisticated to the very unsophisticated. If you can't do that, don't get into politics. You have to deal with everyone, which was explained to me once by the president of our country. Elon is used to working with AAA people, only AAA people, and he selects them from the 10% best. He takes 10% of the 10% best and then takes another 10% of those who wind up working for him. So he would have a long way to go before he could really enter the political realm. You can already see with Donald Trump, being a businessman, that he struggles to reach in his way, the way he talks, brash New York style, he struggles to reach the really ordinary sort of voter, you might say. But as far as Elon's concerned, if he does change, I can say in my opinion, having read about it much as I can, Obama was not born in the United States. There's a lot of
Hawaii.
There's a lot of evidence to the effect that he was born in Kenya. So his original birth certificate was altered and so forth. I saw, from reading, authors who seemed to know what they were talking about. So there's a very, very good chance that in order to have which is not a bad idea, nothing wrong with it, I don't think it's a problem, in order to encourage the possibility of let's say, a non-white president in the United States in the form of Obama at the time, ideas were stretched a little bit to allow him to stand.
Well, he's like a lot of
Americans. I don't see
Americans
anything wrong with it.
Born in America that aren't white. Lots of people in America are born there that aren't white. So
no, yes, they could have, but he was a talented man who filled the bill. So as it happened, you can't just choose anybody. You need somebody. He's extremely good at the exact thing that I was saying Elon is not good at. Obama is extremely good at talking to people, as you probably know better than I do. And so for Obama, they said, well, let's keep this guy in the race. Let's make a plan. Let's say he was born in Hawaii or something. And it's conceivable that in due course, if in the interests of the United States, that Elon should stand for president, it's conceivable that if it's in the interests of the United States, that they would waive the fact that he was not born in the United States. But bear in mind, his grandfather was born in the United States. So if he were...
Is that your father?
No, his mother's father was born in the United States. So he is one generation away. So if my mother was born in the United States, she's the grandmother of Elon, but Elon, as a result of that, is entitled to a British passport.
I'm being told we're almost out of time. Just want to ask you last of all, Mr. Musk, what's more likely, therefore, in your opinion, for 2028? A third Trump presidency, a Musk presidency, or neither of the two? No,
I think at this stage we should look at a Vance presidency. Vance is a very accomplished man. There's no question about it. And I don't think we should rock the boat at this stage. Elon, as I know my son, and his interests are very much more in planting the flag of the United States on distant planets, or the Earth flag, let's say, on distant planets, as opposed to, setting up toilet facilities in some far-flung place for people and stuff like that, which is what politics is really mostly about. It's very boring, politics, by the way. You spend most of your time on very banal things, and only now and again is it interesting, Elon likes it to be interesting all the time. And, when you get into politics, it's not interesting all the time. Well, it's been very interesting talking to you, Errol Musk. Really appreciate it, and hope you'll come and see us again soon. I'd love to. Thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed for your time. Thank you.